But let's move on. Nigeria's Federal Executive Council has approved a new national automotive policy to end the importation of cars into the country. Now, the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Olusegun Aganga, said that this policy would encourage local manufacturing of vehicles and enforce a gradual phase out of used cars, properly known in Nigeria as Tokunbo. Now, joining us to discuss this is the chairman, Chief Michael Adeojo. He's the chairman of Toyota Nigeria. Chief, it's very good to have you on the show with us. Now, let's quickly start by talking about this, because it looks like a good thing. I mean, it's, I hear that we're going to have 700,000 jobs minimum, after this policy comes through. So surely that's a good thing for our economy.
Yeah, it is a good thing, but I don't think it can happen like that, because even in Japan, where several millions of vehicles are being manufactured, there is only about 700,000 jobs in automobile assembly.
Now, what are some of the things that you would like to see happen before this policy kicks in? Because we hear that there are concerns, with the way this is being implemented.
Yes, like I have stressed, this policy is good, provided it is well managed. The problem now is that automobile manufacturing is not something that you just wake up and start. There must be sufficient time. We are not manufacturers. We have got to convince our principals that it is a worthwhile venture to do in Nigeria. We've had several failures in the past,
yes,
and we will not want to repeat the same thing. So it is necessary that all the I's and T's are dotted and crossed, so that we are sure of a sustainable manufacturing process in the motor industry.
So I guess the question is, when is the right timing? You mentioned that this is something that has happened, in the past, and of course, that didn't work out very well. So if you don't think that this is the right time, when is the right time for this to come in?
Yeah, this policy was only approved on the 2nd of October, and for us, we must study every bit of the policy before we can start doing things towards manufacturing of vehicles. We've been asking for this policy, and we don't just want to have a policy, we want to have the policy legislated on, so that if you embark on this course, there is no sudden change in government policies which can derail many well-intentioned industries. So what we are asking for is that we be given time, say like minimum of 2 years, in order to study and begin to see where and what things to do to ensure that we have an enduring policy or motor vehicle assembly process in Nigeria. Because now we have got to get some things right before this can be embarked upon. We are not sure of the environment here in Nigeria. There are very, very few spare parts being manufactured, unless we just want to bring these vehicles into the country with all the parts, or almost all the parts, imported. And I don't think we can derive the best benefit by doing that. We must be able to manufacture some spare parts here, and spare parts are not just, we must ensure the right quality. These parts must be sanctioned by the would-be principals, because you cannot just put Toyota on any vehicle if the parts that are going to be used are not certified by them. So these are some of the problems that we need to look into to see that we are in a position to actually start on a sustainable manufacturing process for cars.
Now, there's also talk of some insider information where perhaps some car importers knew about this policy before some others, leading to mass importation. So, what do you think what do you think the government needs to do, to ensure that there's a level playing field for all car importers?
Yeah, there are one or two things that government can do. It is established that there is some kind of insider dealing here, because just between the second and third, several thousands of vehicles were placed were placed on the manufacturers by this particular importer, and whereas none of the other importers who are even bigger than this particular one have not done anything within 2 days. Within the 2 days, as I said, the policy was announced on the 2nd of October, and then the date for completing Form M's and the opening letter of credit is the 3rd. I mean, if somebody doesn't have a knowledge before that, I doubt if that is possible. So, and this person, has not been importing this kind of number in the past. So, definitely, there are some other faults which we have identified in the policy, which we need time to look into with the relevant ministry, so that every concern is removed. And I want to emphasize again that we are not opposed to this, because I think it is the natural way to go, but we must be well prepared for it in order to avoid any failure again. We have failed about 2-3 times, and I don't want us to fail again in this process.
Of course. Now, I think a lot of Nigerians will be concerned by this. We hear that car prices could actually go up to 50% because of this policy. So talk to us about concerns regarding that.
Yes, you see, one, transportation occupies a very important place in the transportation of goods and materials and men in this country. It's the only reliable source of transportation, because the air, the sea are not very, very, very useful. About 80% or over of the Nigerian public is carried through here. About 90% of the goods in the country are done by land. So we don't want a system that we just grind the traveling public into a halt. So there must be sufficient planning to ensure that we do not just kill our economy just by sudden steps that are not very well thought of before embarking upon them.
So we're going to leave it there, but very quickly, I just have to ask, are there any plans for your company to set up a plant in Nigeria?
Yeah, I was the one that actually encouraged the minister to go after the South African model, so that we can have something like, or repeat something that has happened in South Africa, without taking all the motor manufacturing and motor marketing companies in the country into reckoning. I think there's a big mistake there. So, to answer your question specifically, we are very interested in setting up, but we have always asked for a condition that, one, there must be a policy, but we must have the time to study that policy and embark on our plans. We are carrying out feasibility studies now, and we need time to complete it. We need time to acquire land. We need time to put this in planning, and I mean in to government for approval and all these things. So these things take time. It's not something that you just wake up and start.
Of course. Thank you very much for sharing your view with us and for coming on the show. Now, that's the chairman of Toyota Nigeria, Chief Michael Adeojo. He's also the chairman of the Auto Manufacturers Representative Group.